have today. The dependency on imported fuels has to go down. It is essential for our national security. And when we talk about the energy sector as it stands today, and as was mentioned by Nadeem Bhai, we've got substitute fuels and we've got competitive fuels going around. Let's just dwell upon renewable energy. Ladies and gentlemen, the pricing of renewable energy advancements in technology, we are talking about the set rate, the established rate in Pakistan is 4.5 cents per unit. We are talking about energy rates coming down to 2 cents per unit in the very near future, in the 3 to 4 year time horizon. We are talking about, I was in China and we were talking about solar energy rates going down to 0.5 cents per unit. So when you have these competitive factors that you're dealing with, you have to put on your thinking hat and your research and development hat and see how you can be part of the change. And now comes the Kodak moment. How many of you have heard Kodak? Raise your hands, please. The reason being because it was one of the largest film manufacturers in the world. What happened? It just disappeared. Why? Because it did not forecast the change in photography and digital photography that came about. They just didn't forecast it. It was business as usual. And they said, oh, this is a fact. Digital photography will go out of the window. Nobody can capture light as you can do with a film emulsion, an emulsion film. Guess what? They were wrong. The digitization of and technology changes that came about in the world of photography, it just revolutionized everything. And lo and behold, today on your smartphones, you can take photographs that are 24 megapixels. The same thing is happening in the energy sector, ladies and gentlemen. When Nadeem Babur Bhai and myself, we assumed office, one of our challenges in our sector was sitting down with the people and telling them that, listen, you have to keep on adding energy into the pipeline. There has to be incremental, cheaper form of energy that you have to keep on packing in. Why? Because we've got this latent demand. We've got this demand from a sector of the informal economy. And again, going back to that and putting things in perspective, a country like the United States, the European Union, which have very well-documented economies, but many people are not aware of the fact that for the European Union, about 18 to 20% of their economy is also in the informal sector. Why? The cash base, the mom and pop shops, the taxis. In the United States, it is also about 15%. So you can imagine the size of those economies, and 20% of the European Union economy, or 15% in the informal economy. So when you factor that into the equation, then, ladies and gentlemen, you have to provide for them. And the demand for the cheap energy is there. So if you go forward and we're looking at a downward trajectory in the prices of energy, and we are telling our people that stop thinking with blinders around your eyes, open your minds to the fact that in today's world, as you bring in more energy, we will be replacing the more expensive energy out of the pipeline. We'll be keeping it away, and it may be even cheaper just to make the capacity payments and bring in the renewable energy. Because once in our matrix of growth, the drivers of economic growth, energy is a major component. I don't have to tell this to this august audience. Once we bring that in, it just unleashes the sector. It gives tremendous impetus to our economy. That's where competition comes in. And our growth targets for the renewable energy sector, ladies and gentlemen, by the year 2025, what you saw, what Mr. Faizan projected, approximately 2 to 3% of renewable energy, we want to take it by 2025 to 20% of our energy mix. And by the year 2030, renewable energy, which does not include hydel, we are projecting it to reach 30% of our energy mix. Those are the changes that are taking place. Now, when we bring all this into the perspective of where technology is taking us, in the petroleum exploration sector, you're the experts here, ladies and gentlemen, but let me just add, Let me just add the component what Mr. Nadeem Babar also alluded to and mentioned in detail, artificial intelligence. And another component with that, when you factor that in, is quantum computing. The world of computing as we know it today, the binary, the 0 and 1, it's going to change. The decision-making abilities, distributed generation systems, what we are looking at today, some of our experts, they had this mindset that no, we should just, the renewable energy, the grid can't take it. Well, we are pushing them to make changes in the grid, to make use of the variable energy that is available on demand. And we told them that you have to realize that the Kodak moment should happen in the industry to the energy sector itself, because the technologies are fast becoming available. Just to give you an example, in the military, the F-18, the F-16 aircraft, what we are manufacturing, the JF-17 aircraft, just to give you what the inherent nature of these aircraft and what technology does to them. If you were to fly these aircraft without onboard computers, ladies and gentlemen, the pilot will not be able to fly that aircraft because it is inherently unstable to fly without onboard flight computers. The same thing is happening elsewhere. So with these smart grids that are coming up, we'll have to look at net metering. When net metering energy comes into the system, how much and what at the microsecond demand level will have to be analyzed. Where is energy required? Where is it going? What is the active and reactive load? All these calculations, which are today with a 24-hour lag period, and that too at the very macro level, it will have to go down at the micro level. Another important factor, changes in the material science. What seems impossible today in the exploration of hydrocarbons is going to be very possible in the very near future. Take the example of rare earth metals. The investments China is making in these very metals, in the material sciences, in magnetism, in various other rare earth metals, and the way these materials are combined, you're creating a class of metals that was never even thought of before, with the ability to drill deeper, with the ability for your computers transporting all these goods and services. Nadeem Bhai mentioned the harnessing of hydrogen. Let's go a step further. With quantum computing around the block, fission energy has already been harnessed militarily as well as for peaceful purposes. Hydrogen or fusion energy has been harnessed for military purposes with a hydrogen bomb. But fusion energy has not been harnessed for civilian purposes. Why? Because the plasma has to be contained. There's no metal to contain the plasma at 1.5 million degrees Celsius. That's hotter than the core of the sun, ladies and gentlemen. They're working on it. And it can only be contained with strong magnets. And where do those magnets come from? From the research and development in rare earth metals. That's where it's coming together. So now you see how all these components fit together and give an impetus to the energy sector. And to give you an example, the changes in the electric fuel vehicles, the cell technology, the fuel cell technology, the rapid changes that are taking place. We'll have the ecosystem, Toyota, Honda, Mercedes, BMW, all these companies are investing billions of dollars in their research and development for this very purpose. And once the demand for fuel for the hydrocarbons diminishes, we'll have a pricing structure which would have been thought of impossible today or even a few years ago. Oil trading at less than $8 a barrel. So all the companies in this industry will have to be more nimbler in looking at how do you fit in. Look at shale oil. When price of oil went above a certain level, investments, all of a sudden it became very efficient and economical to invest in these technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, The conference has to carry on, so I'm going to slowly start winding up my brief talk. What I would encourage is the research and development by the oil and gas sector, the energy sector with academia, and I'm very happy to see the living example over here with universities in Pakistan. But let's take it a step further as well. Venture capital. If you look at Silicon Valley, that's where the secret of America's success came in from. I mentioned the GDP of Saudi Arabia. I mentioned Pakistan's GDP. Let's just put things in perspective. Microsoft does not pump oil or is in the E&P business. Your Apple computers is not in the energy sector. But look at their revenues. The revenues of some of these companies together are greater than the gross domestic product of countries. It's more than $800 billion, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the size. Look at Walmart. These companies are producing value through integrating technologies. Walmart is a retailer, one of the largest American companies. How does it get its low prices? Using technology. Therefore, within this sector as well, you have to grow, be nimbler, use technology, use venture capital, get the people, the students in, fund their research. I was in Germany approximately 14 years ago and I was visiting a company that excels in surface treatment. And that company, the executives of those companies at that time, ladies and gentlemen, they said just to keep ahead of the game, they invest 2 to 3% of their revenues, not profits, revenues in research and development. That is what we have to do in the energy sector and as a nation. Last but not least, ease of doing business and job creation. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, ladies and gentlemen, in every single meeting, and Nadeem Bhai and myself, we are together in every single meeting of the economic group, of the ECC, of the energy, and the Prime Minister hammers it into all of us that you have to think for the people of Pakistan. Job creation. We have to have an environment in which it is a transparent and competitive environment where companies come in and invest. We are reducing red tape. We are making the system more nimbler, more efficient, more proactive, so that companies have to interact with government only on a need-to basis. There shouldn't be paper pushing taking place, because we realize that the most valuable commodity for any businessman or a leader of business houses is time. So we want to leverage your time so that you can spend it on more active and more productive uses. And that is what we are doing. We've got, as I mentioned, we've got our renewable policy out, and we got all the stakeholders in. All the stakeholders' input came in for the first time. Similar thing was going to happen with the E&P policy as well as with the energy policy, and we want you to invest in Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, because the variables for growth, for profits are there. The private sector's chief motivator is profits, because you're answerable to your shareholders, be it in any value chain or upstream, midstream, downstream, distribution systems of electricity, power generation. And last but not least, let me just give some figures to you so you have this perspective. In the power sector, as we mentioned, and the renewable energy projects that are coming in, the ones that we unleashed, they were blocked for various reasons. They're now coming in and investing. The potential for generation alone is $40 billion. For transmission, $20 billion. For the distribution system, $20 billion. We are putting in the power sector at the distribution level, the automatic metering infrastructure. That means your meter, your grids, all integrated. The T&D losses are going to go down. There's a complete different program going on loss recovery, which I don't want to go into the details over here because this is not the audience or the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to wind up and just say that welcome to Pakistan, and those of you, the Pakistani companies over here, invest. The sky is the limit, the returns are there, and you have a very proactive government to address your requirements.